The ABCC bill reveals the level of deceit this government will go to. It is based on so many lies. It's not about addressing criminal activity in the building industry committed by workers by the union. It's not about corruption by those people. It's about weakening and destroying the union movement. And it also runs cover, actually, for many of the big players in the construction industry, the developers of this nation. And those people, those company directors, those companies are some of the biggest donors to the Liberal Party, many of them also to Labor, but particularly to the Liberal Party. And that's where we need to bring the threads here of what's really going on, because there are serious problems in the building industry, problems that have been exposed and need to be addressed. But it's not with how unions are operating. It's about how the big companies, particularly in our big cities, are treating the subcontractors and how that whole chain of operations plays out. And tragically, so often how it plays out is because of corners being cut so profits can be made, people die. And that's what should be at the heart of this debate if you want to be serious about looking at the construction industry and how it should be improved. If we were serious about cleaning up the construction industry, the government would be tackling the culture company directors show for the contempt of law. And that's been set out very clearly, particularly in a Senate inquiry into insolvency. But we see it all the time. There's so many rules that are broken, there's legislation, laws that are not abided by, and company directors get away with it. That's why that culture has developed. We know that's a serious problem because even with the old ABC, no company director was taken to court. How can you be serious about addressing problems in this industry if not one employer is taken to court? And then there is the issue of political donations that I'll come to in more detail. But first off, let's look at issues going on in the construction industry itself, where we have serious imbalances of power in contractual relationships. Now, market power is concentrated at the top of the contracting chain, and we're seeing a shift in how that plays out. We're seeing a shift in where risk lies. The shift is from the large principal contracting companies to those who are least able to bear it. That is, to the subcontractors, the small suppliers and the employees. This is what I mean when I said these are the issues that need to be addressed if you're serious about really getting the construction industry onto a firm footing, so it actually meets the needs of our economy and abides by the law. A large number of smaller-scale subcontractors that carry the burden of risk and a concentration of market power in the hands of a few major corporate head contractors means that those head contractors often have little regard for the competitive pressures placed on subcontractors. The situation for subcontractors is appalling in this country. As a result, the industry is burdened every year by nearly $3 billion in unpaid debts, including subcontractor payments, employee entitlements and tax debts averaging around $630 million a year, and that's just over the past 3 years. Now, who loses out here are the workers, the subcontractors, and why? Because the government is not taking action. The government is sitting on its hands. They're happy for this shift in contractual arrangements because it gives more power to the big company owners, and the subbies and the employees, the workers, the labourers, are at their mercy. The economic cost of insolvencies in the construction industry is staggering, and that is because of the state the industry is in. This is what should be addressed. The construction industry consistently rates as either the highest or the second highest as against all other industries when it comes to unpaid employee entitlements. And who picks up the bill? The public. This is where the construction industry is sitting back so happy. They've got their servants in here, the likes of the Liberal and the National Party senators and MPs, running around trying to set up an ABCC. Meanwhile, their profits roll in, and even when they go belly up, and I'll speak about the Phoenix companies, who picks up the costs? The employee entitlements. It's the public purse. Taxpayers have paid over $226 million from 2009-10 to September last year to employees of insolvent companies in the construction industry alone. Where does it come from? That money is through the Fair Entitlements Guarantee Scheme. Now, that has to be done because we've seen in the past, remember the famous case when Mr Howard was Prime Minister with what happened to Manildra workers. So that has to be done. But industries, top company directors are getting away with it because they know they can. Now, this whole situation with Phoenix is absolutely huge in the construction industry, and that should be addressed. Now, Phoenixing is the fraudulent act to shift assets to a new company to avoid paying tax, entitlement benefits, etc. And again, huge in this sector. The Senate report into insolvency found that compliance with corporation law for many company directors is just optional. Again, how does that come about? It's because of the culture that's been allowed to develop. In a single year, over 3,000 possible cases of civil misconduct and nearly 250 possible criminal offences under the Corporations Act were reported in the construction industry alone. Now, this suggests an industry in which company directors' contempt for the rule of law is becoming all too common. That's why I said it's becoming the culture. They get away with it. I mean, why aren't those issues being addressed? Why don't we hear the Minister Michaelia Cash give one of her impassioned speeches about the outrages in the industry? These are the issues that are being ignored. The ABCC, again I will repeat, is being used for cover to allow the backers of the Liberal and National Party to get away with some of the ugliest issues that you can see play out. And again I'll remind senators, this is a dangerous industry and people die because the corners that are being cut when companies won't follow their requirements, the law on building sites, and allow safety checks to be carried out that will ensure that the law is enforced. So this is how business is operating. There is an environment in which non-payment for work carried out is commonplace. Cash flows are uncertain, and businesses lower down in the subcontracting chain have little power relative to those at the top of the chain. And again, to repeat, who are at the top of the chain? I'll come to that shortly, about their political donations, where they're flowing. Like the Liberal Party are picking up big cash because of the way they are handling this construction industry. And that's something that we need to give considerable attention to. So, these figures are easy to find. They're there on the Australian Electoral Commission. And although I've said it many times, it's wrong that the data comes out long after the election and we won't know, the public won't know who are the big developers funding the Liberal and the National Party in this election. But we know what's happened previously, and it's been happening for well over 10 years. Crossy, which is Westfield Frank Lowy's family company in 2001 and 2, and then in 2003-4, in both those financial years, $300,000 to the Labor Party, and then $250,000 in 2001-2 Crossy gave to the Federal Liberal Party. And these donations in hundreds of thousands rolling in from King Gold Group of companies, Hong Kong Kingston Investments, Fururama. Now, these are all companies that come up under the property sector when you look at these donations in detail. Big money coming in a way that is really having a corrupting influence on our democratic process. And right now, we're coming into an election, people are holding their fundraisers, and there was a very interesting one where Assistant Treasurer Kelly O'Dwyer was outed about her fundraiser being sponsored by the NAB. Now, firstly, again, extraordinary, and really does should be sung from the treetops, this one, because quite audacious, I would say, at a time when the banking industry has been further exposed in just how damaging it is to our economy, how it rips off ordinary people. And here we have the Assistant Treasurer holding what's been called a glitzy pre-election political fundraiser with the Treasurer, Scott Morrison, and herself, Kelly O'Dwyer, and it'll be held 10 days after the budget, so they can spruik the budget there. Now, firstly, that's in itself quite questionable, because the budget is often something that has been developed with great public sector input, and the Treasurer is out there using it, and the Assistant Treasurer as a public fundraiser. Now, a table will cost at this breakfast will cost between $100,000 and $150,000. Now, these are the corrupting aspects of our political process. This is what should be investigated. Now, I don't know what developers will go to this breakfast. You can be sure that there will be some. I noticed in the list that I just read out, there was Brunswick Property Victoria Proprietary Limited. They've given $300,000 to the Liberals at a federal level in 2014-15 on a couple of occasions. So they could well be there. There could be other big donors there. But again, like we should be having a proper investigation in issues within the construction industry with regard to the insolvency issue, the whole chain of command from the big players, the big developers, down to the very exploited subcontractors. That's where we need to be investigating, and we need a thorough investigation into political donations. They're the issues. They're the issues that should be thoroughly investigated. And I think I'll just go back to the situation with Ms O'Dwyer, because she was an NAB executive, now she is a politician, and here she is with this very cosy deal continuing between her former employer, one of the big banks. We're told that they're too big to fail. The government is refusing to have a royal commission into them. Again, why won't they have the investigations into those issues? And I think it's also just worth noting that when Ms O'Dwyer took up her job at the National Australia Bank, at that time her responsibility was looking after the extremely rich families worth more than $30 million. Now, you could say that maybe her job description hasn't changed that much. That was her job description when she worked at the NAB, and I'd say that this is the job of the government these days, is to look after the extremely rich in this society, because that's another way you can describe the ABCC. I'm happy to acknowledge the interjections from our senator from the National Party. Yeah, I didn't. I'll let you say that. I wouldn't use that one. But what we have going on here is, it was good that you came in at that time, Senator, because the Nationals, they're out there on the hustings saying how they're the friend of the farmer, and they're in here, the good fight against the Liberals. I've heard them say they're in here conducting the good fight against the Liberals and Labor, but the Nationals are in lockstep with the Liberals on political donations, of just taking the money in and refusing to have the inquiry, refusing to have the all-important inquiry that we need into political donations to sort this out. So, again, let's come back to the issue at hand about the construction industry and the ABCC. Why has it been set up? It's in the first instance to weaken the union. And in time to destroy the union movement. The Productivity Commission didn't think that the ABCC was needed, Senator, but with regard to the ABCC, a very dangerous body, we've heard my colleagues have set that out very clearly. But I do congratulate the CFMEU for the work that they do on the job, protecting workers' rights, promoting safety. And on the safety issue, I'll end on the point that in May the CFMEU have a dinner coming up. It's their annual dinner, and I'd suggest that Michaelia Cash, our minister, Senator Cash, could learn a great deal by coming along to this. By coming to it, she would be seeing there the union working with industry in a very positive way for safety. The money raised is for the Workplace Tragedy Family Support Group. It's one of the most moving nights I go to. You hear speeches from the children of people who have lost their lives, of the widows who are doing it really tough. And this is money raised for them. And this is why we need to get rid of the ABCC, not allow this bill to pass, and ensure our construction industry is safe and unions can continue to do their work. Thank you, Acting Deputy President.
Thank you, Senator Rhiannon.